Alright, so we're going to go through the quiz over all the common mistakes, the points, all of those things. If you miss these, fix it on a separate sheet of paper if you don't have space on this. Right? For these, I'm going to put these up here just so you can see what the graph should have looked like.
So we were supposed to graph every single.
Correct. You were supposed to graph all of your slope points, your y-intercept, make sure you have arrows, find where they intersect.
That's why we were. Because we're supposed to do all that.
Can you grab your pen?
That's why we got points in that.
So each line was worth 1 point, and your solution was worth 1 point. So each of these were worth 3 points. Did you graph your lines correctly? Did you get the correct order pair? So this one, the solution was -3, 4. Number 2, some of you had the right slope or right-ish slope, but it was going down. You guys had a negative slope. So be careful there. But these did not intersect, so no solution. Number 3, some of us got this one, or some of us made it the wrong slope, but this one was based on your boy bucks. Because this is a y equals, that should have been a horizontal line. Solution at -1, 4. And then graph both of these. Solution at 3, -1. For the graphing piece, if you're not sure, you can always put this into y equals. Not that. I also should have had a quiz in front of me so I see what I'm doing. So let's say I put in just one of these. Then when you put this in your y equals, you can either graph it to see does yours look the same, or you can go into the table, look at the points, the whole number of points, and graph those points to make sure they're the same. So use your calculator, double check yourself. Questions on any of the graphing ones?
Wait, can you explain again how you got to y equals on the calculator?
So y equals is just a button. Type in your equation, and then you can either graph or go into the table.
Oh, I'm sorry.
For the next section, this was hit or miss for some of us. Alright, for substitution, this is where we take one equation and we substitute it into the other and solve. Some of us, based on the review, remember that we should have set these equal to each other. So you should have set them equal to each other. It did not matter if you put this on this side or vice versa. And then started to solve. So some of you moved 6 over, 6x over, and then got rid of 1, either at the same time or separately. Actually, let's back up. I'll do this and then I'll do the next part. So here we have 1 equals -2x plus 1. If I get rid of the 1s, we have 0. And when we solve for x, we get 0 as well. So some of you got 0 and then put no solution. Those are 2 different things. If you got 0, you should have put this back in. Some of you saw that your y-intercept is 1. So that would have to be your answer. Some of you did put this back into one of them. It did not matter which one. And solve for y. So that this would just be 1. And then you wrote your final answer 0, 1. So this was worth 4 points. Did you set up the substitution correctly, setting them equal to each other? Did you solve for one of the variables correctly? Did you solve for the other variable correctly? Did you get the correct answer? Do we have questions on that one? Some of us remembered how to substitute and was able to do that with 2 and 3. You have an equation for y. You're going to take this equation, put it into the other y. Now, when we did this, some of us did not put this back in parentheses. So some of us did not do this, which gave us wrong answers. So be careful with that. So if you did put it in parentheses and then distributed and then kept going, you should have got the right answer. So negative 5x minus 3x minus 7. You could have combined like terms. Some of you moved the 7 first. It didn't matter. We moved 7 by adding. Many of us that solved this one got that, but when we put it back in here, you put the negative but calculated incorrectly. So if we're putting this negative 3 back into this equation, that would be y equals 3 times negative 3 plus 7, which would be negative 9 plus 7. Some of us did not put the negative, so we got a different answer. So that should have been negative 2. Some of us got positive 2. And our ordered pair would have been negative 3, negative 2. Do you have questions on that one? The main thing, remember, if you are substituting, you're taking the equation and putting it into another one, solving, getting that answer, putting it back, and solving. Substitute, solve, substitute, solve. Three was very similar. You had an equation. You can substitute this into the y in the other one. So this would be negative 4x plus 4 times 7x minus 7 equals 20. Then the process is the same. Distribute plus equal. Combine like terms to get positive 24x. Get rid of 28 by adding. And then x would equal 2 when we divide. Then just like the last one, if you put 2 into our y equals equation, we would get our y value. So 7 times 2 minus 7 was 14 minus 7, or just 7. If you got 2 7s, that was the right answer. Questions on that one? The last one, some of us did, some of us did not. The ones that did it, most of us got right. This one did not have an equation that was already solved for x or for y. You had to solve one. the easiest thing to solve for was this x. Get it by itself by adding 8y to both sides. So we have x equals negative 10 plus 8y.
How much were these worth?
4. Each of those were worth 4.
You tell us.
Except for this last one, it was worth 5. So now that we have this, now everything is the same. Take this equation, put it in for x now of the other equation. So we would have 3 times negative 10 plus 8y minus 4y equals 10. Distribute the 3. Combine your like terms. Add 30 to both sides. And divide both sides by 20. Then after you find y, go back and find x by putting it back into the equation that we solved at the beginning. The negative 10 plus 8y. Guys, focus. So if you put that back into the equation for x, we have negative 10 plus 16. Or x equals 6. So your ordered pair was 6, 2. So that one was worth 5 because you had to solve it first. Questions on any of these? I know I'm going through this fast. I'm also trying to write fast so that you guys have enough time when we get back to take your test. Right? So all of these, the premise is the same. Substitute the equation into the other one. If you need this again, I will come back to it. Go into elimination. So 2 of these you could have eliminated without changing them. These have common coefficients. In order to eliminate them, we would add. You needed to show how you eliminated by adding or subtracting or multiplying and adding and subtracting. If we added these together, this would become 0. Negative 7 plus 5 would be negative 2y. 13 plus negative 11 would be 2. Divide both sides by negative 2. Once you have y, put it back into one of these equations, doesn't matter which one, to find x. So I'm putting this into the second one. If you did the first one, that's fine. So this would be 3x minus 5 equals negative 11. Then we could add 5 to both sides. And divide both sides by 1. So the ordered pair for this one was negative 2, negative 1. So these were all worth 4 points, showing how you eliminated, solving for one of the variables, solving for the other variable, and your final answer. Do you have questions on that one? Number 2, you also could have done without multiplying anything, because these are the same. So we could eliminate these by subtracting. Remember, we're subtracting everything. Some of you got lucky with this one because while you were subtracting, you got the wrong thing, but it ended up giving you the right thing. But that won't always work, so be careful. So your x's became 0. -4 minus a -3 is -4 plus 3. So negative y, or 1y. -20 minus -24 is -20 plus 24, so positive 4. Double check it in your calculator. Use your calculator just in case. Divide both sides with negative 1. Say that again. Just the math part. So -4 minus a -3. Do that part in the calculator. Double check your math. Once you have your y, put it back into one of the equations, find x. I'm going to use the first one.
You take -20 out of 24.
Oh yeah, I did that. But
Actually, raise your hand.
Subtract 16 on both sides. And divide both sides by 6.
and for the change.
So that our ordered pair would be -6, -4. Some of you got 6, 4, or 6, -4, or some variation of that, but not, they were both supposed to be negative. Questions on that one? Great. These two, you had a bunch of different options on how you wanted to eliminate these. Some of you saw that this is -8. If I multiplied it by 2, I could make these the same. Some of you multiplied this by 3 and this by 5. It didn't matter. Some of you multiplied by -2 instead of +2. Again, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to do one of those versions. If you didn't do it this way and still got the right answer, you're good. Don't change it. So I'm going to multiply this one by 2, and I'm going to rewrite the first one. So because I only multiplied by 2, in order to eliminate these, I would add the 2 equations. So that this becomes 0, this becomes 11, this becomes 66.
Isn't it -66?
So no, because I added 30 and 36. This was -16x, but I'm adding it. But if you multiply by -2, all your things would be a little different than mine. So y would be 6. And then when you put 6 back in, let's say I did that to this one, -8x plus 3 times 6 equals 18. When I subtract 18, I get 0. Some of you solved for x first and got 0, which was fine. So your ordered pair was 0, 6. Again, if you didn't do it exactly like mine, but I gave you credit for your work, then you can still do it that way. Do you have any questions on that? The last one, you have to change both of your equations by something. If you chose to eliminate x or y, was up to you. Most of you got rid of y by multiplying these by 9 and these by 5. We had 81x minus 45y equals whatever that was. And then negative 40x minus 45y equals whatever that was.
Why did we get 5 from you? Why did you put 5 on the second one?
You can choose whatever numbers you want, but if I'm eliminating the y's, I can multiply by 5 and 9, the opposites of each other. What number did So if I'm trying to get y's to eliminate, I would subtract those. Some of you added here, and that's where everything went wrong. We started to get decimals, things like that. So 81 minus negative 40 would be 121. This would become 0. Plus, minus, doesn't matter. Negative 261 minus negative 140 would be negative 121. So the x would equal negative 1. Put that back into one of them. I would probably advise one of these two because these give you big numbers. Yes.
For the two equations, you subtracted them from each other?
Yes.
But isn't one negative, so don't you add?
So if I wanted to eliminate negative 45, if I added them together, it wouldn't eliminate. So I had to subtract. So if you're not sure, double check it in your calculator. Great, so this solution was negative 1/4. So even though that was more steps, it was still the same amount of points. For 16 points total. I'm going to set up the equations. If we need to see them solved, I will do that, but I will set up and explain the points for the word column. We won't have time to do all of these right now. You should have had two variables for each of these. What you call them was up to you, but let's say I'm calling this C and E, speed of the current, and speed of the boat. Traveling downstream, this would be E plus C equals 21. Traveling upstream, this would be B minus C equals 1. Then you had choices. Solve it by substitution, elimination, by graphing. The answers were 11 miles per hour and 10 miles per hour. So these were worth 8 points total. Did you define your two variables? Did you set up your two equations correctly? How you solved both equations, or to get both variables, and then your two answers. So even if you wrote something that wasn't BS, you got points. Okay, I will set up the other two when we get back.
El mero pisón.
Hurry up, come in, be quiet, please, thank you. Did we have any questions on setup, dividing the variables, the answers? I'm not showing the work because you have different ways of doing it.
Do I got 5 minutes to look at these? Do I got 5 minutes to look at these?
I'm done.
I have a sharpener.
Oh, I thought you were just going to do that.
I'm going to write the answers for these so that we're on the same page of setting them up. So for this one, the important information is highlighted. Your two equations, your two variables, price of the adult ticket, price of the child ticket. So you could have used like A and C. For cost of
Yeah, it's over there.
adult ticket
I was supposed to give this to Kyle.
and cost of child ticket. had 6
Hey, bro,
numbers.
she be staring at me too, though. She's staring at everybody.
Guys, focus. You had 6 numbers, so you should have used your ball. 11a plus 2c equals 149 was one of your equations. And then 9a plus 14c equals 295 was your other equation. How you solved that was up to you. Whether you did that by graphing, substitution, elimination. Sorry, I'm looking for the answers. I don't remember the answers to this one off the top of my head.
I like to fry them. I like to fry them and like put them in brown sugar and then just squirt it. Our movie mom yesterday at 7. It was dark. It's kind of like
You like which one?
yeah, I have no, it's kind of last one. It's like I have an excuse to not listen to anything in this class.
Okay, so however you solved it by elimination, by substitution, by graphing. Again, in points, did you set up your two, did you define your two variables, did you set up your two equations, solve for one variable, solve for the other, and then got your 2 answers. So if you solved it and solved it correctly, you would have got those 2 answers, $11 and $14. Make sure you're putting your labels.
She said you can solve it.
The setup would be very similar for number 3 because you're given 6 numbers. So these would need to be number of students on or in each van and each bus. Yes.
So like a lot of times when I was doing it on well, so I get like the specific variable wrong. So it could be like bag of popcorn. I would put like popcorn and then it'd be like it's actually bag. That was like my main mistake. So I don't even know
that part doesn't matter as long as you're, whether you put back popcorn, that part doesn't matter. What about it? Cost, number of, what are you looking for? That part is what I do.
Yeah, sure.
So then because you have our 6 numbers, our 2 equations would have been 3b plus 7b equals 187. 12b plus 1b equals 154. Then you could have solved this by graphing, substitution, elimination to get there were 11 students in each van and 22 students in each bus. When you get your answers, think about, does this make sense? If when you're doing the boat and current or plane and wind speed, your plane speed should be more than the wind, your boat speed should be more than the current. Your buses should have more than the vans, theoretically. Typically, the price of, so number 2 is skewed, but typically adults cost more than children. But
You're scaring me.
questions about how to set up, how to define variables, labeling our answers. Okay. I need you guys to clear off your desks. You have a smartwatch, take those off, put it with your phone.